I had to put the shades on. What's up, guys? Good afternoon. This Friday Longhorn Livestream. Women are number one, taking the court tonight in the SEC tournament. Jeff Howe against Ole Miss. Winner gets the LSU Oklahoma winner, which will be a very interesting game down there. Bobby's going to join us in a couple of minutes. He's coming back from a meeting. He had to do some stuff with the SEC podcast up and it's doing an event in Nashville. He's going to be here in a couple of minutes. Paul, yes, 15 rowing commits. It's a big visit weekend for rowing. We got a lot of guys about to jump in with their rows and their oars. Is that what's called, their oars and their rows?
We're going to hit Dable Neal's got that recruiting trainer. Where you have the rowers ranked, Jerry?
I don't know. I haven't done that ranking.
In there?
I don't know how to rank those guys. I'll be real. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to look that one up. We're going to be talking about a little team notes. Who's weighing what? A few notes there. Just because some photos have come out. We're going to talk about that. We're going to take your questions. Aaliyah Chavez, Blake put an update up on Aaliyah Chavez on ontexasfootball.com. I've chimed in on that. Her decision has now been announced for 2 p.m. Blake Monroe broke the news that it was going to be March 25th last week. It's going to be at 2 p.m. We have football recruiting news. We're taking any of your questions for the next hour as we get closer here to spring practice, which begins March 17th. Sark has a media availability coming up on Monday that Jeff Howe and CJ Vogel will be at. So be interesting to see what Sark has to say. We're going to start this morning with some photos. We're going to talk about the team a little bit because this comes with a couple of notes that Jeff and I have been talking about. So On Texas Football put up some photos of guys in the weight room. And let's start with this one. And that's Cole Brevard, by the way. That's the fifth-year senior nose guard over the ball players, Trey Moore. And we're going to get to a couple of Zena, who, by the way, we've heard some good things about Zena's upside. Now, Nick Brooks, we're going to stop the music here. About 405, 410 front squat is what he's doing. We've been telling you guys for weeks that Nick Brooks has really impressed early on. His body is he's done some really good work on his body his senior year at Grayson and now into Texas. I believe there's a real possibility he ends up a 2-deep guy next year as a true freshman, potentially at left tackle if the spring goes well for him. There you see Nick Brooks, Jeff, and then we're going to look at this next guy, and then we'll open up to a little conversation about this. Santana Wilson. We were told midway, it was late in the season, that he had a really, really good redshirt year and that Texas was really excited about him. That was reiterated to me on Wednesday. And so he's one of those guys, Jeff, a lot of times the red shirt guys, they kind of get forgotten about at times during a season, especially a team that's on a run, right? Mm-hmm. That's playing for something. Now, the 5-7 teams, you're like, hey, well, let's look at next year who's going to be good. But right now at Texas, because of the run, again, to a national semifinal, some of those redshirt freshmen don't get talked about as much. But Santana Wilson's one of those guys, and now he's got a clean slate too. All these DBs do with Mark Orfe coming in as corners coach, Dwayne Akina safeties coach, although he has an eye on the whole thing in the secondary. Santana Wilson is one of those guys that has a chance to make a big move this spring.
Yeah. Nate Kipple's another one of those guys, Jerry, that we talked about. Yeah, that benefited a lot from the redshirt year. Yep. Here's my thing with Santana Wilson. I kind of forget about him. That's my fault. Because he was just kind of out of sight, out of mind. He didn't play at all. Even we got a little bit of sample of Wardell Mack last year, a little bit of JJR, didn't get any of Santana Wilson. What I hope continues, we started to see Texas do it last year and a little bit the year before. What I hope gets thrown into overdrive with Dwayne Akina coming back, because this was one of Coach Akina's big things when he was at Texas the first go around. Cross-training, really just trying to figure out, hey, how are you going to put your best 5 DBs on the field or your best, if it's in the dime, best 6, base best 4, whatever it is. So whether that's safety, whether that's corner, whether that's nickel, I just hope they find a spot where Santana Wilson can contribute right away. I feel the same way. Look, Kobe Black was at corner. I think as Texas moves away from being a strict field and boundary defense, maybe Kobe Black's future is at safety. I don't know, but I really hope they continue to cross-train guys, figure out where the best fits for these guys are. But Santana Wilson, Jerry, I like kids that have that professional approach. When your pops played ball in the league as long as his did, you take something from that. So no doubt, no question. And obviously we see him with the front squat right there. He's one of those guys that regardless, I would have had circled to, if we go out to a spring practice, I'd want to know about him because, like I said, it just was out of sight, out of mind.
I think the thing with Santana that's interesting is obviously his father really put together hard-hitting safety, right? And so I think people just kind of said, oh, he'll just come in ahead of the game physically. I actually don't think that was the case. I think his dad's just letting his natural growth take place and not forcing that weight on him and that strength on him. He came in ahead of the game technique-wise, and he wasn't in for spring practice. But I think he's made some really big gains strength-wise during his redshirt year at Texas. He's really well positioned to make a move this spring. It'll be interesting to see what happens. A couple other updates. So there's a picture of Kenny Baker that we took the guys out to, I think it was Papado, and they ate all the lobster in the house, all the D linemen. And there was some talk on there about, boy, what did some of these guys weigh? Well, we had reported a few weeks ago, Jeff, it may have been before you joined us at OTF. I'd reported that Justice Terry would work out at edge a little bit as well while he transitions physically. A little cross training there for him while he adds weight to his frame and he transitions from.
That was one of my first couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah. So people were like, oh, he looks a lot bigger in this photo. He's 273 pounds right now. When we had reported, and I got that yesterday. So when we reported that, we said he came in the high 250s when he reported to Texas. He's so put together, he looks like he weighs more.
Yeah.
257-ish in that range. He was up to about 272. He's now 272, 273, same area. Probably will be more in that 280 range by August. And then he'll have to keep that weight on when those August practices starting to heat in Texas. So if he's 275-ish freshman year, 280, I don't think that would be a surprise. So, again, we think he's going to cross-train. We haven't heard anything different. Work out some at the edge, be kind of that 5 tech as his body develops over time and he becomes that 5/3. So I think that's where he's at. And then there's Josiah Sharma in the middle with the skinny ankles. And because there was a report somewhere that he was about 343 pounds like a week or two ago. So, and people are like, oh, he looks slimmer now. Well, he's 345 to 350 in this picture, I was told. So he carries his weight really well, and he's got skinny ankles, which always makes you look super athletic when you are big. But he's still in that 345, 350 range. I think he's probably going to be in that. He's going to be a bigger dude, man. I think he's probably going to be in that 330-ish range by August is what it's looking like for him. Some of those guys right there. Jeff, and that D line room though, it's they want one more guy in the portal, and if that guy, and it's not so much they're looking for a guy just to play some snaps. I think they're looking for a dude. If a dude's out there in the portal, same thing at wide receiver. If there's a dude in the portal, they will go after that guy.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to be interesting as we follow this throughout spring practice, Jeff, is the plan right now. One more D lineman, one more. We're going to get to your Aaliyah Chavez question in a second. I think there's a lot to unpack with her recruitment right now, actually. One more wide out. It's got to be a dude, though. Tight end if they can find that guy. And we'll see with 3 new coaches on this staff. Does a running back, does corner, does anything else become a need after the spring?
Yeah. You're talking about skinny ankles. I thought I was just every time I hear that, I think back to a conversation I once had with the late great Sean Adams. We were talking about Michigan's issues. It was under Brady Hoke at the time. And he said, you know what I see when I see Michigan? I said, what? He goes, a lot of thick ankles on both lines. That's a problem.
That's a problem. That's not good.
Yeah. So here's my thing on the portal, Jerry. Here's where I come out on that. All those positions. Let's say I'm Kenny Baker with that D-line room, right? And look, if you find like a frontline guy in the portal, that's different, right? A true difference maker, a true war daddy, that's different. But if it's like, okay, hey, we need somebody just for depth between, Melvin Hill. I'll put Alex January out of that group because he played some high leverage snaps last year. But between Melvin Hills, Josiah Sharma, Myron Charles, and let's say Justice Terry, I could probably find 2 of those guys that I coming out of spring. I think the goal should be, hey, can 2 of those guys give you, 8 to 12 snaps a game, somewhere in there. And if they can, if I'm Kenny Baker, I would rather focus my attention on those guys than go into the portal and get somebody else. Now, I say that knowing like Jermaine Lole and Bill Norton were late portal ads last year. I mean, there's a difference. Like if you find a guy that's that seasoned, then okay, it could be different. Same thing a wide receiver, between Khalil Lockett and Jamie French and Daniel McCutcheon. Chris Jackson might just say, you know what, there's nothing in the portal that's going to be enough of an upgrade for me to want to slow down the developmental track of those 3 guys, because 1 or 2 of them might be able to be in that circle of trust Sark talks about in the receiver room come game 1 against Ohio State. So it may just be more advantageous for them, they feel, just to keep working with the young guys.
Hey, you brought up a great point that I feel like I need to be clear on that D-line spot on the portal, because when I say dude, some people are like, oh, first round pick. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
Jermaine Lole level player. Jermaine Lole was a dude for Texas. I mean, he's a really good – if he hadn't had 7 surgeries, he'd be an NFL player. He decided that I'm pretty much done with football. I'm going to go coach, from what I hear.
Yeah.
So if a guy is that level player that can be a factor on a potential college football national title run level team, Texas is going to add that guy. Welcome in, Bobby Burton. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good. Just enjoying the conversation.
Yeah, we got some great super chats, and I'm going to get to those after I tell you about our newest sponsor, Vaughn Lane. I love Vaughn Lane already. I haven't ridden on one, but I'm thinking about doing it just for fun at this point. Vaughn Lane, have you tried flying? You've tried flying. You've tried driving. Now it's time to upgrade to Vaughn Lane. Look at those beautiful seats, man. The smarter way to travel between major Texas cities. And for our out-of-state listeners, Vaughn Lane now connects Nashville, Memphis, and Atlanta. Bobby, that sounds good for you during the SEC Championship week, by the way. Let's face it, flying is a hassle. Security lines, packed gates, delayed flights, all for a 50-minute trip. Not worth it. The driving isn't much better. Ever tried a same-day trip between Dallas and Austin? That's hours of lost productivities, emails piling up, calls going unanswered, work left undone while you focus on the road. If you're doing both, then you're probably going to get a ticket or have a wreck. Why waste the day when you could stay connected and productive with Vaughn Lane? Vaughn Lane changes everything. It's luxury regional bus travel, what some call a private jet on wheels. Sink into a plush leather seat. Man, those things I just want one of those for my house, honestly. Stay connected with complimentary Wi-Fi. Enjoy complimentary snacks and drinks on every trip, plus delicious meals on selected departures. Need to freshen up? Indulge in a hot towel service. I'm going just for that. Want to relax? We've got eye masks, pillows, and blankets to keep you cozy. The Vaughn Lane team takes care of every single detail, so you can sit back, unwind, and enjoy the most comfortable travel experience on the road. Business travelers, recapture your productivity. Leisure travelers, sit back, relax, and get pampered. That's like Valentine's Day every day. If you're planning a football game, a concert, or a special event, you can charter your own Vaughn Lane coach for the ultimate group experience. Vaughn Lane is first class in travel without the hassle. See for yourself. Visit vaughnlane.com. That's vaughnlane.com and use promo code OTF25 for $20 off your first trip. Again, that's Vaughn Lane. Thank you very much to being a tremendous new sponsor of On Texas Football. All right, anybody want to tackle Don Gregory's super chat? We got a bunch of questions we're going to answer.
That looks like a bot all the way.
Having trouble with female women. Texted a lady I'm courting 2 days ago to meet up. No response. Help, fellas. Any advice? Words of wisdom?
Look, a lot of fish in the sea. Need to find another fish.
Manscaped. Manscaped to the rescue. Paul, I have no answer for that question. I have no answer.
A lot of fish in the sea, man. If one's not biting, just throw the lure somewhere else.
So we promised we were going to answer this, and I want to get to this before our next super chat. That was very funny. Aaliyah Chavez down to Texas and Oklahoma. That's what we believe this, and we're not going to rule out Tech, but that's where we believe Blake Monroe posted an update. The ultimate decision is going to come down to, and I think it's pretty fascinating. It obviously, if she was a football recruit, this chat would be just filled with questions about her, and I get it. But it's going to be an interesting decision because we talked about it a little this morning, but from a brand standpoint, from a city, from the chance to build a legacy in your home state, all those things, Texas is a top 5 program. All those things lead her to the path of Texas. And now Texas, Oklahoma, if the decision actually comes down to those two, it wouldn't be a shock. She's a Nike kid. I think she's going to sign a Nike NIL deal is what I think. So and that's the difference now. You get paid on those deals in college, which will lead her to a Nike school in my estimation. I could be wrong. That's just what I think. So I haven't heard anything to push me off of that. From the Oklahoma standpoint, fast-paced, wide-open style. They've shot almost 800 threes this year. They average 86 points a game, and they lose their point guard, but return a lot of pieces around it and had a really good recruiting class. So it's a really interesting decision coming up for her. I think you could point to 9-10 things that lead you down the path of Texas. And I think you could lead to a couple of basketball things that lead you to the path of her really liking Oklahoma. Going to be an interesting decision because, look, the people that want to argue Texas, I can 100% see it. People that say from a basketball standpoint, boy, she really fits at Oklahoma. I said, yeah, you're right. You're spot on the way they play and the way she plays and what they're losing and where she could fit right into that. At Texas, does Rory Harmon come back for another year? We don't know yet. She took part in senior day, but that doesn't mean she's for sure gone. So, those are discussions I'm sure that Vic Schaefer and his staff have had with the Chavez family.
Yeah, you can get multiple senior days. Didn't Jordan Whittington get like 3?
3 or 4,
yeah. So that's neither here nor there. Here's my question, Jerry, and I really wonder this. Whatever the dollar amount could be with an NIL deal she has with Nike, because I'm with you on that. Could somebody in oil and gas, whoever at Tech, just decide, you know what, we'll up the ante and we'll give you that much money. In other words, we'll make you whole on whatever NIL deal you would have got with Nike if you stay at home and go to Tech.
I know Bobby's got a thought on this too. But the one thing I would say where things have really changed for me is if the family decides, all right, we want to do we're going to do an endorsement deal with Nike, then back in the day, Nike really, since you couldn't get paid on it now, then that's a totally different game. So I don't see her if she goes to Nike, which I believe she will. I see your point, Jeff. And that's probably what Tech's always been up against is recruitment. Mm-hmm. She 100% will have to go to a Nike school. She signs with Nike now. Yeah. And where the schools that are up against it, Bobby, they can make her a shoe now and put her name on it in college. That's a total game changer through NIL than 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
I've got no doubt that she's going to go to a Nike school.
Yeah.
Because even if it's Cody Campbell out at Texas Tech, for example, who's the oil and gas guy, just point blank, it's not a question of whether or not it's a couple of guys. It's him. Like he is the guy. He is deeply involved in it, and he is working it. This is his passion project, in my opinion. And so there is no doubt that even he could put a bunch of money on the table and assuage fears like, oh, it's going to be $1 million. Okay, I'll pay you $1 million and you can go to Tech if you want to go to Tech. Yes, he can do that. What he can't do is give her a shoe deal that might have residuals of $50 million. And that's what Nike can do. Now, could he do that? Yeah, I guess he could give her $50 million. That's ridiculous. And
Trey P brings up one instance, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, where Nike shoes at Rutgers. Yeah. Nike's also will control that too.
Yeah.
It's what they're okay with if you sign a deal with Nike.
I'll counter that too. I mean, Cooper Flagg's got the New Balance deal, but that's literally a matter of months, right? If Aaliyah Chavez goes to Texas, she's there 3 years at a minimum, most likely 4. So That could be a lot of money you're leaving on the table. Whereas New Balance,
good point, Jeff. 1 year versus 3 or 4.
I do 9 months, 8 months at Duke, and then you're swimming in New Balance money.
Hey, you're also talking about something else, and that the difference between men and women's basketball. I mean, men's basketball has shoe deals coming out the yin yang and have for 30 years. Okay. Women's basketball has one shoe deal of note.
Yeah.
They're still piercing the corporate veil in that regard. And so I think that comparing men's shoe deals right now to women's is different. And that's something that, not everybody's willing to gamble that. Is Adidas willing to? They haven't shown the proclivity. Nike has.
Yeah.
Long and short of it.
Hey, Jerry, real quick, because I'll admit I'm out of my depth on this, because Trey brings up another good point in the chat. Is there, at the end of the day, what's the difference between somebody being a Nike branded athlete as opposed to the actual Jordan brand?
Not much.
Okay.
MJ just makes more.
Okay. I didn't know how much nuance there was there.
Yeah. I mean, the whole deal, this whole deal comes down to if they sign a Nike deal and Nike says, we want you to wear a Nike shoe multiple years at this university, then she's going to a Nike school because they're going to make sure it's worth that. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there. But a lot of people do think it's Texas or Oklahoma, but we'll see on March 25th.
I think it's Texas, Oklahoma, based on some people I talked with today after our morning show. I will say this. I wasn't trying to be sexist there in my response at all. I'm just pointing out that women basketball players, to my knowledge, there's really only been one that has had a successful shoe launch, and that is recent, within the last year, right? Now, they've had untold amounts of, how much does Viore pay Livy Dunn to do commercials? God only knows. So there's other apparel that they have hit big on. But while it's been going that direction for men for a long, long period of time, it's a recent phenomena with women's basketball.
Jerry, real quick, and I'll just ask this last question, and then we can move on or keep on it. Can you fill in the blanks? What was the deal with the Harrison twins way back? Because if I remember right, I think Under Armour had gotten in with their AAU team, and
their dad coached their AAU team,
and everybody assumed, okay, Under Armour's pumping all this money, they're going to Maryland, and they ended up going to Kentucky.
Yeah. That was more so. Those kids are ranked really, really highly.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing I don't know. I don't want to get anybody in trouble on that, but Under Armour, that was when Under Armour was trying to make their mark, and the dad obviously coached an Under Armour team, led an Under Armour program, and his kids played for that. I thought all along they'd probably end up at Kentucky, though. I just think that was a fellow named World Wide West. There's a lot going on there. This is a really good question, guys, recruiting wise. Jerry, curious on your thoughts on 5 of the top 10 players from the 2027 class have now reclassed to 26. Is this going to become more common? I 100% think this is going to become more common with the very top ranked players that are on the right path academically to actually plan for this, Bobby. I don't think your junior year you can necessarily decide, I think I'm going to do this. Not every kid. Now, I do think we're going to see more of this, and especially with the top rate kids, so they can start their NIL clock. Number one, it's about NIL clock.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I mean, that's what it's about.
It would be for me if I was told that I could make 0 playing my senior year of high school, or like Quinn Ewers did, go make $1 million riding the pine. I know that people are saying, well, he lost a lot in that, and I think he did. Ultimately, that may have been a poor decision by Quinn Ewers to go spend that extra year, because I think he lost out on some leadership development he could have had at Ohio State. But if I'm a defensive back like Zealous Hicks, who just signed with Texas, you're not going to get more leadership value out of being a guy in the secondary at that high school.
Right.
Take quarterbacks out of the equation and talk about other positions where theoretically they're going to get 0 versus 250 or 400 or whatever the number is. I think you'll see more of it, and I think you should see more of it. And if I were their parents, I don't know what I would say if I were their parent. I know what I would say if I were their agent, right? Because, you're really looking out as a kid, as a parent, you're looking out for the holistic best of your kid. But as an agent, you're saying, look, you can play your senior year of high school football, risk getting injured. Yes, you can go ahead and get your scholarship paid for and make sure you got a commitment there. Or you can get a scholarship right away, expedite a year, miss your senior year of high school, and go make $250,000 to $400,000 in a single year. I think it's normal. The thing I have that's very interesting on this, Roger G., which I think is more important in what gets lost, who are the top 10 players for the class of 2027? I think the idea that we know who they are right now is BS. I think that I can tell you maybe 3 or 4 guys that are legitimately in the top 10 or would have been in the top 10 for 2027. On paper, yeah, there's already guys there, but that we don't really know that until the summer before their senior year. And so I don't ascribe to the notion that 5 of the top 10 have already reclassified, other than how somebody specifically ranks them right now. I would bet large money that 5 of the top 10 aren't real, at least, if not 8. Just my guess.
Yeah, and go ahead, Jeff.
No, I think Jerry, you hit it on the head with the academic component. I'm not going to say it's the norm, but it's a lot more feasible now for kids to, even if they don't reclassify, some of these kids are getting to college. I'm talking boys and girls at large. You're getting to college with, 30 some odd hours.
Yes.
The day you set foot on campus. So I don't see that part of it slowing down with, the ability to take dual credit classes or community college classes or whatever. It's just a matter of, is the kid willing and able to get there academically? Then yeah, you can definitely make it happen. There's a clear pathway to it.
All right, before we get on to you guys bring your questions, recruiting, whatever you want to bring on this Friday, and we'll answer those. Before we get to that next set of questions, Bobby's going to tell us a little bit about Flat Creek Winery and Estates.
I tell you what, if you haven't tried the Super Texan from Flat Creek Estate Winery, you need to. It's flying off the shelves like hotcakes right now at Specs. HEB's got it. They are just doing great business right now. Again, that's the Super Texan from Flat Creek Estate Winery. Flat Creek Estate Winery is actually the vineyard closest to Austin and the most awarded wine in the state of Texas, just minutes from town. They've won award after award for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Of course, Flat Creek is also a gorgeous venue. Look at the pictures here with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect for a day date with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. Make sure you check out those guys, Neil, Eva, Sean, and all of them, Eddie Lopez, those guys at Flat Creek Estate Winery.
All right. Let's see what's up next for our questions here. There was another question I had starred here. Oh, hold on. This was up here. Where was that on? Sorry about that, guys. Great TV here. Let's see. LL, rank these wide receivers by speed. Burrows, Johnson, Hines. It's hard. I mean, those guys are a year earlier than Burrows. I think if Kelshawn Johnson trained for track, and track had been something he really cared about, he probably would have been a 10-2 kid.
Oh, wow.
He is really super explosive. I'd probably put him 1, Burrows 2, and Hines 3. But here, the tough thing about that is, look, we talk about all the time. in Florida, those kids, and Kelshawn Johnson was like a Florida kid, a smaller school kid, played multiple sports in Texas. You know, those kids are kind of a little more raw physically coming out that play 3-4 sports. Naeem Burrows is one of those Florida kids, kind of wiry, strong, and he hadn't even started scratching the surface. Tanook Hines physically is a lot more developed than those two guys. Tanook Hines in person, I saw him on signing day when I went to see Nick Townsend ceremony in February, even though he'd signed in December. He did the ceremony with the game. Tanook Hines is physically really developed for a kid his age. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's 6'1", 6'1 and a half, about 190 in the low 190s and still running 10.6 on the track or whatever he's going to run this spring. So that's a great question. I think the most talent in terms of 10-yard split, a 40 and 100 is probably Kelshawn Johnson of that group long term. If they all maximize.
You just hit the nail on the head. We need to start talking about speed differently.
Yeah.
In a more educated fashion. Tanook Hines might be the fastest in the 100 meter, but the slowest in the 20-yard dash.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're getting at, Jerry?
Yeah. Kelshawn, I think Kelshawn has that. For me, Kelshawn had that top end and 2 steps, kind of like Matthew Golden showed at the combine when he ran the 149.10. I think Kelshawn Johnson is very similar in that regard to that point.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I just think we need to look at speed differently. It's not just speed. It's who's the quickest off the ball, who's the biggest deep ball threat, you know, who's the quickest in routes. So I feel like speed is too broad a term.
No, you got that longer.
You really want to get granular and talk about them.
Got that longer speed too. Yeah, if you're a 100-meter guy, 200-meter guy on the track, you're a hurdler or whatever.
Yep.
This is interesting. NFL is going to love reclassed players. That's interesting. So let's throw this out.
Why would they?
Well, let's throw this out. Like if your top 5 of your top 10 kids in every class ranked kids end up reclassing. So Adrian Peterson gets to Oklahoma a year early. So he has a little more tread left on the tire coming out of college, and you get him there a little earlier. Potentially. Lineman, I don't know. That's such a – like, I don't think we're going to see a bunch of – I could be wrong. I don't think we're going to see a bunch of offensive linemen reclass and be 3-year players and go to the NFL. I think that if those guys reclass, there's going to be 4-year players instead of just going to college a year later and being a 3-year player. So you make a year extra of NIL. Don't get me wrong. I think that's a big deal. But all right, Bobby, let's see Patrick Peterson coming out of high school. If he had graduated a year early, he's still a 3-year player at LSU, probably.
Yeah, but you're talking about freaks upon.
That's what I'm talking about. Those
you're
guys.
Talking about the top 20 guys with Adrian Peterson, Patrick Peterson. You're talking about guys that are going to be top 10 picks no matter. Jeremiah Smith could have graduated and gone top 10 this year. But the problem I have with that presumption is that you're still only going to get those guys for 4 to 5 years. So if you thought you were going to sign a guy to a 10-year contract out of the gate, and you were going to get to see him still be developing in years 6, 7, and 8, then maybe you love a reclassed player. Maybe it helps with lack of tread on the tires of an Ashton Genty.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Maybe. But I don't necessarily that I think the NFL is actually going to dislike it because they want to get what they pay for right away. Typically.
Yeah, especially with the rookie. Yeah.
They want to get what they pay for tomorrow.
Yeah, Bobby, especially with the rookie wage scale being what it is, especially if you're talking about quarterbacks. Very, very rarely. I mean, very rarely do you get a guy like Tyron Smith that's 3 years at USC and he steps in as a rookie starting left tackle at 20. Not even old enough to buy a beer, but he's old enough to play left tackle in the NFL. I think we probably make too much of that. Here's the other thing with a kid that reclasses. What if that kid's already been held back a year and reclasses, and age-wise, he's where he probably should have been all along? So
yeah,
I don't.
That's a good point, Jeff.
I'm not saying it's definitely good or definitely bad. I'm saying there's a lot of gray area, and it's going to take us a few cycles of this to see how it pans out. I don't think you can say anything definitively right now.
I want to say this. That happens more in 2 states, the holding back kids back, than any other. California and Texas.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often. I saw some of it in New Jersey. But California and Texas are the 2 states that you see guys being held back for athletics. You don't see that in Louisiana. You don't see that in Florida, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina. You just don't see it. But to your point, yes, I agree with you. It just gets them back on the right age range, but only 2 states really do that.
That's an interesting point, Bobby, because I've had conversation with different coaches and parents over the years, and it depends on what part of Texas you're from, what socioeconomic area. Because I've talked to plenty of parents that, hey, I had to get my kid in Head Start or get him to school, so I get him on the free lunch program. If you're a single parent, so I mean, it's there's definitely not a blanket deal for this.
No, well, it happens in suburbs.
Yeah,
let's just be blunt, that are well-to-do.
Yeah.
A lot of quarterbacks. All right, guys. We're going to get back to your questions here. All right, David Keith Williams. I think the 2026 UTDL of Alex January, Josiah Sharm at nose, Terry Myron Charles at D tackle, Colton Vosick. I almost made up a new word there. Colton Vosick, Lance Jackson at strong side defensive ends, Simmons, Smith, and Rogbo, weak side defensive end will be the best in the nation. 2026, 2 years out, guys. 2 years out on the defensive line. That's that. Well, I'm going to add another one, Zena, into that. Texas is pretty high on Zena. Now, he's got to go get it done, but I think there's a thought with Zena that he's got a real upside to him that was going to take a little longer from a physical development. Now, the guy who worked in high school did a great job with him, but you're still limited in how much you can see him, nutrition plans versus going to college and being with Torrey Becton and being with a nutritionist in an everyday scenario. Add Zena to that, but I tell you what, Melvin Hills is a rotational player. I think Texas thinks he can be a quality rotational player, but it's a lot of Bobby. That's a lot of talent in the young defensive lineman at the University of Texas. And at the 26, I mean, you're talking about one of those guys potentially being the best defensive player in college football, and Simmons as well.
I just love it. That's what makes me one of the reasons I was late to this podcast. Actually, is I was doing a interview with the guy from that SEC podcast, Jerry, and we talked about Texas and why everybody in Austin is so confident about the future of the Texas football program. I said there's 2 reasons: quarterback and defense.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a defense, and they've got a defensive system. They've got defensive personnel they're hitting on. They've got a defense now. Texas, the years gone by where we were worried about that, when they changed this year and got 40+ sacks, my thought process on the Texas defense just changed, fundamentally changed, because it was no more read and react and wait. All of a sudden, the zone coverage looked pretty dang good when Texas was getting 40+ sacks. It works. Zone works if they don't sit there and have all day to pick you apart, right? So that was one, is that defensive front and the getting after the quarterback. And so I'm all in on what you just said. It's a plethora of talent. They're coming at you from size, speed, quickness. I don't know. I wasn't around Georgia when they had all those young kids and that have cycled through. But Texas is adding guys like that every year right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that is freaky. And so 2 reasons I'm ultra confident in Texas: quarterback, defense.
I will add to how you feel about the defense, Bobby. I feel like last year everything lined up the way Texas needed it to replace Sweat and Murphy. Jerry, I kind of riffed on one of your recent takes about Bo Davis being a really good coach, an elite defensive line coach against the run, and Kenny Baker maybe being an elite defensive line coach, coaching pass rush. I just think it's different things that both those guys value, and neither one's right, neither one's wrong. It's just the way they both approach D-line play. I feel like you have an aggressive defensive line coach that teaches winning at the point of attack and disruption. I think PK saw the need to, hey, we're not going to be able to play as much too high shell because Sweat and Murphy just wrecked so many game plans and were so disruptive and so damn good. You could sit in a too high shell all day and it didn't matter. You needed to play more post safety. And you brought Johnny Nansen on staff, who Arizona ran a ton of post safety, really, really aggressive. So I feel like all the pieces really aligned for you to be an elite defense last year. It all came together the way it needed to. The other thing I'll say too about David Keith Williams, and this kind of speaks to what Bobby was just saying, I'm not going to get caught up on depth chart stuff because you've got so much. And I'll give you an example. The linebacker this year, all right, you've got a guy on Anthony Hill who's an every down player. There is not a scenario in football in a game where Anthony Hill shouldn't be on the field, right? Beyond him, between Leonga Lafau, Brad Spence, and Ty Anthony Smith, rotationally, you can do – it's going to be opponent-specific and scheme-specific where you can use those guys. In other words, if you're going to face a team that's going to run a lot of 12 personnel and try to pound the football, okay, probably going to be more Leonga Lafau snaps that week than Ty Anthony Smith. If you're playing a team that's more 10 personnel, going to spread you out and throw the football, no, it's probably a Ty Anthony Smith week. So I think you've just got one really special player in Anthony Hill, and not to knock any of the other guys, but it's going to be week to week depending on who else plays more snaps. I think that's what you're getting with at the D-line. I think one or two of those guys could emerge as frontline guys, and then it becomes opponent-specific as to who's going to get more snaps in a given week.
Dude, I got news for you too. Why don't you think about adding Gelani McDonald to the box as a star?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you see? I mean,
I agree with David on this. I don't think it's out of the question.
Yeah, I worry about the secondary and the experience of the secondary to like Makuba and Barron, Jerry, took advantage of opportunities.
Yep.
And they did so because of experience as much as because of ability, in my opinion. So that's the question. Are they going to have the takeaways from those two guys? Because between the two of them, they have 10 or 11 interceptions. That's quite a bit. And so we'll see if the Kobe Blacks or the Jalen Gilbos or whoever enters that role can still do the same type of thing. But my point that I was getting at with putting another guy like Gelani McDonald in the box, and it really hits close to home because you and I were talking about John Mateer yesterday on our Coffee and Football show, the new OU quarterback. He rushed for 800 yards last year. They're going to run him. Well, what team did Gelani McDonald really look good against last year? Do you remember this game? He had his coming out party. It was Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And it was against Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
And you put him in the box, Brad Spence in the box. You've got Trey Moore, Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill. If you add Ty Anthony Smith to that group, good luck having a running quarterback.
Yeah.
No offense, but
yeah.
I mean, yes, some guy's going to pop something off every so often, but that's not a let's go run the quarterback against this group type of team. I'll tell you that much.
All right, I'm going to answer this one real quick and then lead us into a ad read. Is Texas sniffing around Xavier Griffin, the 5-star linebacker from Gainesville, Georgia, committed to USC? Yes, Texas, Johnny Nansen, Tashard Choice when he was around, Kenny Baker, they all went by Gainesville High to see Xavier Griffin. They're trying to get him on campus this spring, which leads me to the next ad read. I need help organizing all these unofficial visits in March. Bobby, tell me how I can organize all my unofficial visits, please.
Yeah, actually, Bluebird Organizing, Perry Ricard, we appreciate you for your sponsorship. Are you and your family feeling overwhelmed and stressed in your space, holding on to too much stuff, navigating a big transition like moving to senior living, divorce, having kids, and ready to bring more order and calm to the space you spend in every day? Bluebird Organizing, Austin's premier Professional organizers help you wherever you are in life. You'll end feeling overwhelmed. Get organized and make your space work for you. If the thought of having someone come look at your personal space feels too much, Bluebird Organizing understands. It's no small ask to let a stranger come into your home, but with Bluebird, there's no judgment, only efficient plans that can resolve any conflicts at home and help change your life for the better and make it easier on you. Call or text Perry at 737-346-779 to book your free in-person consultation today. That's Perry Ricard, 737-346-7779.
All right, now that we're organized, I'm putting Jeff and Bobby on the spot. This is a Friday afternoon doozy of a super chat question.
Okay.
If this is a Manscaped related question, I'm going to be
Juan Garza asked, and he asked me, but I'm not going to answer yet. If Arch was not at Texas, does Quinn come back for one more season? Here's the question. Would he have had to come back for one more season?
Okay, this is the key part, though. Are we assuming Arch Manning never makes it to Texas, or Arch hits the portal?
Or he just says if Arch is not at Texas, just say he's not at Texas, whatever the reason being.
Okay.
It's a really good question, guys.
I'll give two answers and then I'll turn it over to Bobby. If Arch doesn't come to Texas, I say Quinn goes anyway because you probably got Dylan Raiola or Julian Sand or there's somebody in that 24 class that's waiting their turn.
Yeah,
they're probably not going to be as patient as Arch. So I think Quinn still leaves. If Arch isn't there and it's just Trey Owens and KJ Lacey, I want to say yes. Yes tells you the conventional answer, but I just think Quinn was gone regardless. I think he just had it in his head. And we've seen this. Texas had plenty of these guys, and it's not right or wrong, just is what it is. They know, hey, I'm gone in 3 years. Whether it was Earl Thomas who had to help his family. I remember Malik Jefferson was that way, helping his family. Like, he's going to be here 3 years, and then he's gone. I just think Quinn was gone. He was going to be at Texas. 24 was going to be it, and he was gone.
Bobby?
I disagree. I think he'd be here.
You think so?
Oh, hell yeah. I think it's a huge yes.
Because the reality is
because what happens if Arch is here next year and Quinn goes down with another injury and Arch looks like he did against UTSA and Mississippi State, Quinn may never get his job back. Then what's his NFL? Now, if all he's worried about is Trey Owens and KJ Lacey, a year younger, I think it absolutely. He and his agent and family may totally disagree with this, and Quinn may even, but I absolutely think that somebody breathing down your neck, and I'll say this: it was not easy being Quinn Ewers and being the star quarterback at the University of Texas, and the backup gets more applause than you do.
Yeah.
Take that away, and all of a sudden, does Quinn Ewers want to come back more? I think he would be here because he would also maybe feel like Texas needed him here. Like, Quinn loves the University of Texas, guys.
So the reason I think it would have been possible is, okay, when you started the season, Cam Ward's stock went up. Shedeur stayed the same. Quinn's went down. There's a scenario through NIL where he might have, if Texas needed him back and after the season he had, and he's going to be drafted, and I'm not saying anything negative, but his stock did go down this year. He's fighting right now to get it back up. I don't know. And then the flip side of this, man, this guy's been hurt 3 years in a row. It's just best to just go on. We can't do another injury-plagued year. That's a great question, Juan Garza. That was a good one. Way to put us all on the spot.
I think too, the other thing is, in this hypothetical world, what does the 25 draft look like from a quarterback standpoint, and what is the 26 draft? If Quinn's facing the scenario with no Arch, like you laid out, Bobby, I think it's much more feasible to come back if Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Aller are in this draft pool.
Yeah.
Then Quinn saying, okay, then it's what? Quinn and Cade Klubnik in the 26th draft. So that's the only variable, honestly. That's the only other variable that would throw me for a loop in that is what both draft classes in this hypothetical look like.
And here's another really good super chat, by the way. Jose Rodriguez, thank you. Juan Garza and all the guys for super chats. Good afternoon, gents. Based on current roster, what position groups are best for 1-year rentals versus development? That's a really good question.
Me personally, I always think wide receivers. You can get a 1-year rental for a wide receiver.
Yeah,
I think corner's kind of the same way. We were talking earlier, Jerry. Talking about Jermaine Lole in the portal. That's probably as good as you can hope for in the portal. And that's not a knock on Jermaine Lole, but like on the rare occasion that, like, let's say a Walter Nolan's in the portal, financially, how feasible is that going to be for a lot of people? Like, that's a rental and it's going to cost.
Well, right. And great point, Jeff, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, and Walter Nolan may be a first-round pick. He should be top his talent. I mean, it's a joke. His talent should be a top 15 pick. Yeah, I mean, the guy, unless you see him in person, I mean, this guy is so talented. What did Ole Miss get ROI on that one, Bobby? They didn't make the playoffs.
They got ROI.
You think they're happy with that?
Without him?
Yeah.
Same with the Umamilian guy. They got ROI on him too. What was their defense without him? Without those two?
Yeah.
Now they didn't make the playoffs, so did they get the ultimate ROI? No, but I would say they were net positive. A&M sure could have used Walter Nolan this year. Whenever Trey Wisner was going for 180 on him.
By the way, we haven't talked about that enough.
Let me feel. I want to answer this question. Yeah. What position groups are best for 1-year rentals? Running back.
Yeah.
Keyshawn Judkins. I think quarterback. The 100%. Reason why quarterback can be great for 1-year rentals is because you've got nothing, you can have something. Look at Notre Dame. Both teams in the college football championship, 1-year rentals quarterback.
Yes. Oregon in the playoffs.
Syracuse, 1-year rental at quarterback. Miami, 1-year rental at quarterback. So quarterback.
Yes.
Now that has to be a good quarterback and all this other stuff, but you can improve your lot so much.
I was going to say, unless you're Florida State, and
then
Matt,
then you chose the wrong dude. But so running back Keyshawn Judkins is a great example, right? Running backs tend to carry wherever they're at. Wide receivers, Jeff mentioned, completely agree with that. And then I would go with the two other positions are offensive guard and defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Now you have to find the right ones that are rentals, but they're easy rentals because playing guard in one ain't that big a difference between playing guard at Texas and playing guard at A&M. Just not. So yeah, one may do more zone blocking, and it ain't that big a difference. Okay. Defensive tackle ain't that big a difference. Some teach upfield runs. Just as long. The one that I would disagree with Jeff on is cornerback, because I do think the style of coverage matters there, and it makes it hard to match. Like I'll give you an example. A Gary Patterson defensive back would not have been if he came to Texas 4 years ago, and it's Jason Verrett or one of these guys. Bud Clark was even a guy they thought might go in the portal at one point. They wouldn't have been as valuable at Texas because they didn't run run the coverage.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not. So I think you're right about wide receiver because there's so many of them too. It's easy to get if you combined best for rental with development / ease, it's wide receiver, hands down. There are a couple other spots. Tight end maybe with the right guy. I don't think you think about Trey Moore. Okay, it wasn't easy for him.
No.
That transition didn't take place really till six weeks in. Andrew Makuba played hell of a lot better the second half of the season. Yeah, he played like a world beater at the second half of the season.
Yeah, so with Makuba, Bobby, I was thinking, to me, safety's a tougher transition for me than corner would be.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But at the end of the day, at both positions, I would rather invest in young guys for the reason Jerry and I were talking about earlier. You may have, let's say, Santana Wilson. You may have an idea, all right, this guy's going to be my middle field safety. And then you suddenly see, yeah, actually, he's one of our 2 or 3 best man cover guys. So we're not going to put him in middle field safety. We're going to put him at corner. I just think that the way both of those position groups need to work together, and there's so much cross-training and so much communication that goes on in both spots. Offensive line is secondary or 2 positions where I would avoid the portal unless you just absolutely need to go get somebody.
Yep. All right. That's great discussion there. Let me see. There's another question I had. This is an interesting one too. Okay. This is a really interesting question from Frank DeClet. I don't think we can answer this, but we can answer part of it because the people in the chat were responding to this. By week 5 of the season, who will be the starting OL?
I don't think it's going to be any different than week 1. So I just my guess would be left to right, Gooseby, Umeozulu, Hudson, Campbell, Baker.
Yeah,
I know things about Kibble, but that would be my guess.
The 5th game is the Florida game, and that's coming off
after
of
the off week.
I honestly, I hope it's the same offensive line that starts the opener, because if not, that would tell me more likely something went wrong than somebody offended. That would be, hey, again, hypothetical. It's like, hey, DJ Campbell's not giving us what we want. We got to make a change, and let's go with Nate Kibble. And then you get the bye week to get him ready, and then he starts at Florida, whatever it is. Or you say, hey, Brandon Baker's not ready, but Nick Brooks is. All right, we got the bye week and then game week to get him ready to go to Florida. So I hope it's the same, because like I said, I think it's more likely than not at that point that something went wrong.
Yeah, I tend to agree. All right, Bobby, tell everybody about we saw Brian Robeson reeling in a massive fish. Let's talk about how he caught that fish for a second.
All right, I want to tell you about Tackle Addict. After the end of this, I'm going to ask Matt, our producer, to bring that video back up and convince you guys that you need to reach out to tackleaddict.com. If you are a fisherman, anything from a pro to just a sportsman, do yourself a favor and check out tackleaddict.com, owned and operated by former Longhorn Brian Robeson and former Longhorn baseball great Brandon Belt. Tackle Addict has everything you need for the best in today's fishing equipment. Tackle Addict is for the everyday fisherman and the serious pros alike. Get their product shipped to you directly from the shores of Lake Sam Rayburn. That's Tackle Addict, ADDICT.com. And Brian and Brandon say hello and hook them to you guys out there. I got to ask Matt if he could bring this video up. This is a fish. This is Brian Robeson earlier this week. Look at the size of this sucker, dude. Wait till he's taking out his own camera. Look how big this thing is.
Man.
Lake Sam Rayburn. Lake Sam Rayburn. Look at that. Yeah. And he throws them in like Bomar. There you go.
Yeah. He did. He threw him in like Bomar. Just get away. See you, Rhett.
Yeah. All right. We got one super chat, and then we're going to end the show for this Friday. It's an interesting one. I'm going to change Steve Capps. If Arch had led Texas to a touchdown when Sark pulled Quinn against Georgia, what would have happened at quarterback at Texas this season?
Sark was willing to go there.
He had his hand forced in that game.
Yeah, he was willing to go there. So if he would have scored and they would have somehow come back in that game, what would have happened?
So here's the thing. If Arch had scored on that drive, then he would have kept them in for another drive.
Oh, at least another drive. If not,
and then if things had stayed positive, you probably wouldn't have had a change back in that game. It's the what-if game. That's a rat. It's the offseason, guys.
It is.
My gut tells me that no matter how the first, unless Arch was just completely lights out, I think Sark really wanted the 2024 Texas team to be Quinn's team. I think he would have gone back to him after halftime. Unless Ronnie Millsap could have seen, no, you need to stick with Art. Like, yeah, I think Sark would have gone back to Quinn.
Little Smoky Mountain Range.
I like it. All right, guys.
Wow.
We got a lot this weekend, Saturday conversation. I'm cutting a recruiting piece later today for Saturday as well. We got a lot of stuff coming up for you this weekend. Thanks every day for On Texas Football, the family members at ontexasfootball.com, where we have a bunch of good stuff on the daily. Here, we're over 74,500 subscribers, on our way to 75,000. We're gonna have a pool party, I think, that day. Maybe we'll see what happens. I'm joking. We're having a party though for 75K. But thanks very much to everybody. Thanks to Bobby. Thanks to Jeff, and thanks to Matthew Hutchinson, our great producer. And we'll talk to you again on live stream. Will be Sunday night before Monday's Coffee and Football.
All right, hook up, guys. Have a good weekend.